Hi, welcome to Intuition Your First Sense. This is Vicki. Thank you so much for being here. Today, this episode is the 100th episode of Intuition Your First Sense. And that blows my mind a little bit because I do this every week. So it means that in a little less than 2 years, I've reached this number and I've reached it with you along with me and for new people joining every week. So much fun. I feel this global connection that, let's face it, we could really use these days. And it just feels like my community is all around, and yet it's so far out there too. And I really wish that you guys had smell a podcast or something, because I made homemade bread today to celebrate, and I am not usually the baker kind, other than banana bread and that kind of stuff. So it is a big day here at Baird Enterprises Incorporated. Thank you so much for joining me. And typically on the 25, 50, 75, 100, I usually do a recap. And I decided to skip that this time because, one, it's my podcast, I can do what I want. And two, because you can go back and listen to the episodes and you can scroll through and see what the subject matters are. I try to make it pretty clear in the title what it's going to be about so that you can choose which ones you want to listen to right away or ones that will come up. I appreciate the emails I get. It comes out on Wednesdays, and the emails and the text messages and the social media messages that I get, that people look forward to it for their Wednesday connection. And that was actually part of the intention. It wasn't just from marketing perspective because you want to be reliable. You want to show up when you say you're going to show up. Sure, that's some of it, but mostly it was about making a promise to people and people feeling like, and listeners feeling like, that the episode would be there and it could be kind of a touchstone when there's so much changing all the time for us, and it becomes I hope, a steady for you. So to reach 100 episodes when I know I'm a good talker, I love to talk. I love to hear people talk. I love that engagement. It just is the greatest gift, I think, that communication skill. And we're not always the greatest at it, but you know what? I think if we're showing up and doing the best we can, then it continues to grow. And if you're willing to use those 2 ears before you use your one mouth, a lot can be learned and a lot can be accomplished. So thank you for being a part of this. And if there are subject matters that you'd like me to cover or people you'd like me to interview, send an email. info@VickiBaird gets to me. And I'd be happy to cover the ones I can cover and bring in people who might be able to help us if I don't know the subject matter all that well. So if it has anything to do with geography or directions, you do not want me doing it in this lifetime. I'm much better at the realms. One of the things I decided to do for this episode, rather than do the recap, was I've been working on what I think is a pretty easy system to follow, and it will eventually become printed out there somewhere. But I thought, you know what, this is fun. I'm going to talk about it and see if we can help people before I get around to writing it and publishing it and everything. So I have this idea that intuition is as easy as ABC. And if you want to sing the Jackson 5 tune to that, that's okay. But I really do believe that living this life and understanding our connection to our soul and our human self can be as easy as learning ABC. We could make it do, re, mi, but it didn't really work for me. So I've broken it down into 3 pieces in the coaching over the years that I find to be the most applicable. And while I don't always talk about it as a system, it's definitely within my wiring and my intention and my practice, really, of how I guide people not only to their own intuition, but to their most fulfilling lives, their successful businesses, their product launches, and whatever else I'm fortunate enough to be part of. And the way it goes is A is where you receive intuition. It's your intuitive center. So we start with A, and that's intuition, because why? Intuition is your first sense. Very good. You have to throw it in occasionally. So the B is where you get practical. It's where you actually look at what would you like to create, what needs to happen. Are there systems that have to be put in place? Are there some blocks that need to be removed first? Is there a person you need to hire if you're launching something or if you're growing a business and you don't have the particular skill set? You might need to hire someone. Do you need to maybe get your hair cut if it's growing out of control and you have an interview and you want to look polished? Do you have to maybe actually go to the gym or go outside and work out if you want to be able to run that mile at whatever pace talks to your heart? Because running is running. A mile is a mile. No matter what your pace is, you are running a mile. You are running. So little pet peeve of mine when people say, well, I run so slow. If you're out there and you're moving, you are awesome, but you might need to apply some practicality to that, and that maybe you don't go just once a week because it needs a couple times a week to build on itself. And maybe you don't go out and do 5 miles, maybe you do 1 mile 3 times a week for many weeks on end until your stamina is built up. Or maybe you hire the financial consultant or CFO before you decide to invest in bigger launching of your business because you want to do it in a way that will promote sustainability and growth and profitability. So the C is action. And that's why you follow the 2 in action. You actually call the person, you make an appointment, you go outside to get the mile in, you do some research, you get your paperwork together. You build the prototype. If it's something that you're inventing, you can't keep it on paper. You have to actually build it in order to then take the next block of ABC where you would connect with someone that could maybe produce it for you in large scale. So I really believe that the majority of our life can be this easily approached. And it's not that the subject matter will always be easy or even the path of it will be easy, because you might have the intuitive hit, which is the A. You might have the knowing. You might have some kind of guidance suggesting that it's time for you to go back to school or that you want to move. You might have that, but haven't yet done anything practical with it, which is the B. But I really believe that it's an easy enough formula that it can take the pressure out of whatever it is you would like to create or do in your life or feel or experience in your life. You take that pressure of not knowing out because it breaks it down into 3 very practical fundamental steps. A lot of the times when we sit down and we talk about the practical aspect of something, it becomes less scary. It practically loses its monster energy right away because most stuff can be dissipated or relieved if we just talk about it. We just have a conversation with it. And then you can move on to the action part and you can feel the momentum, and the momentum will then carry you forward into whatever other decisions you have to make. And the reason I started using this was because I love the blend of the intuitive self with the brain. There's actually a part of your brain that is considered the intuitive center. So there's already a component that's at the ready for in your physical brain to receive the information from your soul knowledge, but it does need to be activated. So you might need to sit down and consider, what is it that I'm receiving? What would I like to do? How would I like to be? And then it might need to germinate for a little bit. There have been many times where I've known where my business is headed, but it just wasn't time for the action step yet. However, in the practical sense, behind the scenes, I get it ready. I build the scaffolding. I contact the consultants that I need for the help. I write the program. I do the research. I have written some programs and thrown them out because when I got to the practical application of it, I'm like, oh man, this is fluff. I don't do fluff. I can't do fluff. Fluff annoys me. So it just got tossed out, even though from another avenue of practical, would it have made money? Yes, I do believe it would have. but does it line up with the intuitive hit that I have and my desire to help people not only connect with their intuitive selves and their human self, but to walk joined in that? And a lot of the subjects didn't, and that's fine. Other people can teach them. And so there was no need for action. So sometimes you may receive a knowing about something or a hit about something, and then when you sit down to do the practical application of it or the business plan, however you get to the financial plan, you may find that no, that's not a good idea right now. Or it's going to take so much time and it's not practical right now because I'm raising these amazing young people and they really need more of my focus and I won't be able to put the attention just yet. So let me save this knowing or this idea for a couple years down the line when they're more independent. So it's not that you have to follow through the ABC of intuitive knowing, practical application, and then action. It's that you just understand that there's a formula, and that formula can help your head to calm down, and you can bail at any point, but you can also follow through because it's so simple. And I base this on what is actually what I think people naturally do, but what you're also desiring. And I may be off base. It might just be based on the thousands of people I've worked with and not everybody on the planet. But if it applies to that many, I figure the numbers are pretty good. I do believe that we all feel possibility, and we want to feel probability, meaning that it can come to fruition. But it requires a belief in ourselves in order to do that. And this can follow the ABC premise as well. So when you're in intuition and when you're in that soul knowing place, you feel possibility. Many people have said that I look at life through rose-colored glasses, and that's not actually true, because I will see what's fundamentally not working in most situations. It's just that I don't believe that that's a foregone conclusion, that it's going to happen. Some people just like to look to the that's not possible side, and I think I am wired to look at, it's not only possible, it's probable. And we just need to put some belief in ourselves or the process in order to carry it through. So if you think of yourself in that germination place, that idea place, that creativeness of the intuitive knowledge, you will recognize that you're in possibility. You're in a place of what could this be? I love that question. What could possibly go really well in this scenario? What could be the greatest outcome of this plan or this nonprofit we're putting together, this educational plan, this community group, this business, this law firm, whatever it is? What is the highest intention? What would we really love to do? And that possibility asks you to tap into your intuition, to see it, to look at what is the potential future vision of this. And that's the easy as A. And you can start in lowercase. It doesn't have to be a capital A right away. But that's the possibility frame. Intuition is possibility. There's a knowing there, but it's not, even the most gifted intuitives cannot be correct about everything. And even when I'm seeing the trajectory of someone's path, even though I have a track record, if we did the variables out, there's obviously going to be some of what I saw that didn't come to fruition because the next step of practical application or probability was not taken by the person that I was talking to or working with. And that's why when you work with an intuitive coach, you really, or any coach really, you have to understand that we both bring an aspect to this relationship. But if you're the coachee and you're not willing to do any of the work, well, then it's likely not going to come into probability because it just requires your investment. So probability lines up with the B, and you can remember that, the practical, because B is in, there's two of them in probability. So when you're in a practical application of that intuition, you're factoring, you're looking at what could work, what might not work, what could be done today, but that what could be a 3-month projection. And then once you have that laid out, you can go to C, which is action, and that's the actual belief in self or the process or the business, depending on what you're talking about. So can you see how this allows a dream to become reality? And it requires taking action in that. And that's life across the board. So if you want to be in a loving relationship and you intuitively know that you have wonderful stuff to offer and that you actually are a great partner to yourself and you'd like to be one with others, you have to take the practical step of either putting yourself out there and being on the dating apps, or when we're allowed to commingle with people, or being willing to allow yourself to be seen in all of your amazingness, even on the days it doesn't feel amazing. So you can have the intuitive knowing, you can have the possibility of being in a loving relationship, but the practical step is that you have to be willing to connect with people. You have to make a plan of some sort, and then the action would be following through on it, not just talking about it. I've worked with many people who wanted to do this and create the partnership of long-standing for them and a very heart-centered space. And when I suggest that they go the next step of going to a meetup or joining a kickball league or doing something where you're really enhancing your own life and having fun, the resistance that's there is amazing. And that's where I gently suggest that, well, I don't know what kind of probability you're looking at here then if you're not willing to invest in yourself and in the process. There are no magic wands to life. I know that people want to believe there are, but that would also take away the belief in the self or the belief in the process or the belief in the dream. Because when we get to experience the fruition of it and the joy of seeing the work put in be realized, that's one of the greatest gifts of being human and able to achieve your own life. Like the idea that I'm sitting at 100 episodes is really kind of blowing my mind. Even though I know it's coming and I planned on it, I haven't set an intention for the number of episodes that this will run because my intuition guides me in all of these circumstances into what the next step is, where do I go, and then the practical part is planning it out, making sure I'm sitting at the microphone, making sure I get it uploaded in time to be edited and then released, and then the action part of how long this show will be on. I mean, I hope for thousands of episodes, but how long the show will be on, that action point isn't going to reveal itself until I am actually further in and deciding, is it serving a purpose? Is it helping people? Am I still loving it? That's really important to actually enjoy the aspect of whatever you're doing. And that's where the belief in the process comes in too. I could never have imagined how this podcast charts overseas. I dreamed, I hoped, but I'll be honest, there was a part of me thinking, well, how's that going to work? And then I just threw it up to the universe and said, well, you guys know how to work it. Not the greatest at marketing myself, so you guys take over. And boy, has the energy done that. So there's action in the universe as well. If you are willing to take the steps to listen to your own intelligence, your emotional intelligence, your intuitive intelligence, and then your cognitive intelligence, if you're willing to listen to all those and take some practical steps, sometimes the universe will move things forward for you in ways that you cannot even imagine, and you can call that the action step. So The reason I wanted to do this on the 100th episode was because I've been sitting on this for a while, but just hadn't gotten around to putting it into solid English. But I wanted to do it for the 100th episode because I want to kick this off for whomever's listening. I want you to hear that it doesn't have to be as difficult as it often seems. Like, I was reading a post the other day, and people were getting so caught up in how many hashtags and what should they say, and do this on Facebook, do this on Instagram, do this on LinkedIn, do something different on Twitter. And I remember sitting there actually laughing because at one point I was very caught up in this and knowing all the metrics and everything. And I started laughing and I'm like, you know what? I'll do what feels right and I'll do what the algorithms are speaking to at the time. But to get this fixated on the minute details like that and forgetting that there is universal energy at work here just keeps you distracted from what is the, like I said earlier, the outcome. Do you want to enjoy what you're doing and feeling? And I felt so many people in looking at starting businesses and taking maybe their hobbies to an income. And I see so many people getting burned out because they're caught in the over information and making it too difficult and hook this app up to that and to this and to that and da 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 da. If you break it down into 3 steps of listening to yourself, listening to the guidance of your intuition, taking some practical measures, but really listen when it seems ridiculous, and then put the action out there. If you are authentically yourself, and that can mean that you admit that you don't know everything and you're working on it, I promise you, you have the ability to thrive in how you would like to bring the joy to your life, because fundamentally that's what we're here for, is to bring joy to our own life and to the rest of our humanity. And sometimes the sheer ridiculousness of being human gets mixed in there. So I thought, you know what, the first of the year I want to launch something that is so easy that maybe you can just jot it down on a piece of paper and see how it applies to your life. And when you're in possibility, allow yourself to really dream about it. And then when you get in, you start moving it towards the probability, whoa, this is really happening. Don't get caught in what everybody else is saying. You still have to stay in alignment with what you feel in order for it to come to fruition. And that will help you to then take the action step. So I hope this made sense. I would love to see people's dreams become their reality, and to really start enjoying being in the action, in the application, and then in the appreciation place, because it feels really good to accomplish things. And I think a lot of the times the message is instant gratification, but boy, do you miss that middle section of probability, and then the result of a belief in self that you might not know how to do everything, and that's okay, because who the heck wants to know that? But you will believe in yourself enough to try anything that lines up with you. And I wanted the 100th episode to be about potential, to be about your greatness, to be about an ease in this process of being a soul and human combined. Thank you so much. I cannot express, as much as I love my adjectives, I cannot express enough how grateful I am for everyone who listens, who shares, who participates. And if you believe a smidgen more about yourself than you did when we started this episode, well, then I feel so blessed to know your energy. Thank you so much. And I will see you in episode 101. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your First Sense. I appreciate you being here, and as always, you can get a hold of me on any of the social platforms at coachvickibaird.com, or you can email info@vickibaird.com. That's info at vickibaird.com. Thank you so much.